It's time to pick a side. The Border War is on the air with BG and Tan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 69 of The Border War. I'm the TanMan. I'm joined here by my right-hand man who's sitting on my left, BG. We want to thank you for tuning in. We want to encourage you to like and share our page on Facebook, as well as follow us on Twitter at The Border War. You can follow BG at BG_Border War. I am at TanMan3264. Make sure you email the show. Let us know what you think at CarolinaBorderWar@gmail.com. Let's get right into it. BG, the Atlanta Braves season has officially come to an end.
You know, there was a period of time last night for about, an hour, 45 minutes or so. My son had a cross-country meet, so I was, you know how much I love Game Tracker, man. I was sitting in the truck waiting on his turn to run. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those things. They take forever. There's like 25 classes of kid. They separate them by gender. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, kids that were born between February the 8th and February the 15th. It's your turn to run now. So the meet starts at 5:30. He's not running until like 7. Then it all gets canceled because of a lightning strike. Anyway, I'm watching the Game Tracker on my phone, and I'm like, oh, the Braves are up. The Braves are tied. The Braves are losing. Look, the Dodgers, if they played 15 times, I feel like the Dodgers would win 13 of them. Well, that's just how it felt.
Yeah, I
the
think
Braves needed a grand slam, right, to eke out a win.
In this
a couple
series,
of nights
you
ago.
saw the difference. You know, the Dodgers are built. You know, they're, as the saying is, they're built for this.
They're
built for the postseason. They are built to make a run at the World Series.
They've got the starting pitching.
And what you saw in the last 4 or 5 days when these two teams matched up was the difference between a team that is on the come up and a team that is there. I think they said this is something like the Dodgers' 4th NLCS trip in the last 6 years. I mean, they are the gold standard right now in the National League, and the gap was wide.
Yeah, I
mean,
agree.
It was wide.
I was a little more optimistic about Atlanta's chances, particularly when I thought the game was going to go 7 games, or the series was going to go 7 games. But no, I was hopeful the Braves would win 2 games. I didn't think they would win the series, and I mean it wasn't impossible for them to have won last night. But you just felt like that the Braves had to play error-free, mistake-free, perfect baseball to win, and the Dodgers needed to just play like about at 80% and win.
And you hit the nail on the head right there. Coming into the series, I said last week I thought, what I really believe would happen was when Atlanta come home, their best chance to get a win would be Game 3.
And they got it.
That's exactly what happened.
And it felt like that took everything they had.
Yeah, and yesterday was a little head-scratching. I turned it on by the time I got home and was able to settle in because they finally had a game that didn't start until like 8:30.
Right.
They were up 2-1, and as soon as I turned it on, I saw 2 pitches, and who was it? It was David Freese. Base hit up the middle, 2-run score, boom, and then the wheels fell off.
Right.
Therefore, a very brief moment, I think it was in the bottom of the 8th, that Inciarte on 3rd. Charlie Culberson comes up. He gets a base hit. He struggled.
Well, when they had the bases loaded and didn't score, but that was the game.
Did you see the bomb by Lucas Duda?
I did.
I came up out of my seat.
Yeah.
That thing was smoked, man, and it just went foul. And even watching that, you knew. I texted a buddy then. I said that was it. I mean, that was their chance. If they had any idea that they were going to be able to get back in the series, that was it.
Even so, you felt like all you were really pulling for was what? I mean, you didn't think you were – even if you won last night, if they went back to Los Angeles with the series tied at – I gave them no chance of winning the last game. I mean, you just wanted some – what's the word? Pride. I guess you're just looking for pride. Really.
I think that they got everything experience-wise it was everything that you hoped it would be for him.
Yeah. You didn't want him to get swept.
You
certainly didn't want him to get swept and shut out for 3 straight games.
You didn't want him to get swept. And after those first 2 games in L.A. where they didn't score a run.
Did not look like they belonged on the field with the Dodgers.
They didn't look like they were even in the same ballpark. But like I said, with that said, it's impossible to look at this team and think back. Last year they won 72 games. This year they won 90. You cannot look back on this season and not think that on some level the foundation has been laid for a longer stint in the postseason than what was this year. Now, this is not a team that is set. There are certainly some places where they need to improve. Bullpen pitching jumps out. Pitching in general really jumps out at you like a glaring red light. What do you give up? 27 walks in the 4 games.
Right. Now, walks really were. I mean, but I mean, the walks. Let's be honest. The walks came from a lack of confidence, I think, to pitch to some of the Dodger pitchers. Right. It's a psychological sort of. I'm trying to. It's like the metaphor, I guess, what the comparison in football would be. These teams that get up by a couple of touchdowns, but they know and they don't deserve to be up by a couple of touchdowns, so they start trying to just run the clock out, and they end up losing.
Right.
And that's what the Braves pitchers felt like. They were just trying to pitch around everybody, and you can't pitch around everybody.
No, you can't. The bats, I think they won something like 20-something games on the last at bat throughout the year.
Yeah. That was what
the bats failed them miserably, especially through the first two ball games.
But I mean, as a Braves fan, did that not feel like what it always did feel like? I mean, you go back and everybody screams pitching. I'm like, well, when you look at the top 10 pitchers with most postseason wins, man, it's like half the roster is Atlanta.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I remember year after year after year in the 90s. I mean, Atlanta could never hit. They could never score. I mean, you would have these 1-0,
toward the end of that run, I remember there was a Giants series where the bats let them down. And the Cubs series in the NLDS that let them down.
They didn't hit particularly well in the World Series that they won. They won Game 7 1-0. Dave Justice had a solo home run, and the Indians didn't score at all.
That was Game 6.
Was it Game 6? Okay.
Come on,
You're
man.
right. I know.
Come on.
Look, it's been a long day.
Look, Ozzie Albies, he batted 200 for the series. Ronald Acuna, he bats 188. Markakis kind of struggled down the stretch. He batted 083. And then you've got Johan Camargo out there with a big fat 0 for 15 for the 4 games. The Dodgers, their bats did not let them down. The Braves 1 double, the Dodgers 4. The Braves hit 2 home runs, the Dodgers hit 8, and they added 7 stolen bases to the Braves 0. Like we said, this was just
outmanned,
outgunned.
Here's the thing,
in every sense of the word.
It seems like all of these teams that have postseason success, and I'm talking about this year, and I'm going back to some of the Braves' losses to the Twins and the Yankees, and even in the National League, I can remember, like you said, a Giant series they lost, a Cardinal series that they lost, a Padres series that they lost.
Don't remind me about the Padres series.
It seems like every year, though, that there are guys that these teams trot out there who take it to the next level in the playoffs, and you look at their regular season stats, and they weren't all that remarkable. And it just seems like to me, and I'm not trying to put the weight of the past on this Braves team, but it becomes this sort of narrative. I try to be one of those guys, like when you're watching an NFL game and and they'll say, Cincinnati hasn't won in Pittsburgh twice in a row since 1972. And I'm like, well, that's got nothing to do with these guys. They weren't born. I get tired of that to a degree, but
I don't know. I think those stats are awesome.
It's fascinating, but I think they're illogical. And I know what you're saying. I'm a dual-minded guy. I've got one half of my brain that's like, yeah, that makes total sense. It's a curse. And then one side of my brain that thinks, no, that has nothing to do with this. But what I'm getting at is it just seems like there's been a continual inability in Atlanta, in the Braves organization, to sort of ratchet up that focus and intensity for the playoffs. And no, I don't expect this Braves team to have won this series, but like you said, man, in the first 2 games, they they looked overwhelmed. Like they could, other than Acuna, who came out gunning in game 2, right? He hit that double on the first pitch of the game, and I was like, okay, no. No. And I know they're young, but I think about all those Braves teams with Glavine and Maddox and Smoltz, and you're throwing out 3 Hall of Fame pitchers in a 5-game series, and you can't win it because you couldn't hit at all. At all. And it just felt like the same thing again.
You just mentioned pitching. What's your take on going with Fultonevich starting game 4 instead of Julio Teheran? Because I know that was a big discussion point amongst Brave fans.
I guess it doesn't surprise me, and I know that's not exactly an answer to your question because I think that Snitker's that kind of manager, right? If Fultonevich is sort of down on himself, well, I'm going to do what I can to bring this guy's confidence back around. No, I'd have probably gone with Teheran. Because he's one of the guys that got you there. Fultonevich had a shot at it.
It
looked like it felt a little like going back in the ring with Ivan Drago. I don't think if Apollo had lived, I don't think he wanted any more of that, and that's how it felt.
Fultonevich he did more than his job yesterday. I know Snitker took him out to try and get a bat in earlier. Otherwise, he probably could have gone more than the 4 innings he gave you. I just think that if Julio Teheran is part of your future, then to me he's got to get that start right there because by the time they brought him in late in that ball game,
if nothing else, you want to know what can he do in a playoff game, right?
By the time that Teheran got into the ball game, it was on its way to being out of hand. And like I said, if he's part of your plans, the only other postseason appearance that Teheran had, he got blasted, what was it, we said last week, 5 years ago against the Dodgers in this same series, the same situation. So to me that screams a vote of no confidence and that we're probably looking to move on from Teheran this offseason.
Well, speaking of the offseason, Atlanta is probably, depending on who they unload. You may have seen Markakis' last game in an Atlanta uniform. They're probably going to unload more than half of their salary.
I saw where
I've seen estimates
around $70 million, $60 million, between 60 and 70 of spending money this offseason.
I've seen more conservative estimates than that, but the lowest one I've seen is $40 million. Most of if you want to kind of take the 247 Sports idea and sort of average them together, I sort of came up with a figure between $40 and $50 million. Either way, a big chunk of change. But here's 2 words for you, man. Liberty Media. And that's my question. And everybody, of course, is screaming Bryce Harper. And I don't think that's the answer.
No. Look, I saw Bill Shanks. Bill Shanks is the one where I got the 60 to 70 number from.
Yeah.
So, he's pretty plugged in. Bryce Harper's, if it's $60 million, Bryce Harper's going to make $35 million next year.
Yeah. And to me, another hitter in that lineup is not what Atlanta really needs. Just from a baseball standpoint, they need a power pitcher. They need someone who goes into a 5-game series or even a 7-game series and really, a guy like Randy Johnson back in the early 2000s where you knew we can't win this. We can't win this just because of that guy.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend that kind of money, that's what you need to go get.
Fultonevich did his job all year long. He was the de facto ace of the staff. Now, you can have the debate on whether or not he is ace caliber material on a championship team or whether or not he's better suited to be that second guy in the rotation. But to me, you're right. They've got to get a true
And again, we're talking about postseason success here. They've proven they can win the East. The East isn't going to be great again next year. The Braves should absolutely be a playoff team next year. But you need Fultonevich is a great. Even as a one pitcher, he's going to get you there over 162 games. But we're talking about a different level of baseball.
You need somebody in the postseason that can come in and be your horse. Right now, this team doesn't have it. We mentioned bullpen earlier. Some names that are going to be out there. Andrew Miller's going to be out there, and Craig Kimbrell is going to be out there again.
Interesting.
And the other thing,
I just wish he could spell his own last name correct.
The other spot that I think that they could really upgrade A lot of Braves fans are not happy with the catcher position. Tyler Flowers was pretty much awful basically all year long.
Right.
The name that keeps
and we talked about it before the season started that we thought we both had concerns with that position, and I sort of brought third base up as well at the beginning of the season.
Kurt Suzuki is 34, 35.
Yeah.
It seems like he's discovered a bat since he got to Atlanta, but that's not really what he's been his whole career. Again, Flowers was average to below average all year long. A couple names that seem to have tickled the fancy of Braves fans. One is JT Realmuto. I think it's how he pronounces his name, the catcher with the Marlins. His name was floated a lot back during the summer at the trade deadline. Derek Jeter's got the asking price pretty high right now. The other one, Wilson Ramos, he was dealt from Tampa to Philadelphia this season. He hit 306, which is about 70 points higher than Tyler Flowers did this year. So a couple of names to keep an eye on as we go into the offseason for Atlanta. But no, you said it. I think the East is going to be there to win again next year because the Nationals are going to, all indications are they're going to lose Bryce Harper. The Mets just can't seem to get out of their own way. So to me, it's Atlanta and Philadelphia again next year.
Yeah, and again, my concern is with the Braves' actual owners, Liberty Media, and whether or not the Braves are actually in control of this money that they can spend. I mean, are they going to be allowed to go out? And I mean, because they haven't paid for this success. They've drafted this success, right?
Well,
so we don't have a big. There's no Fred McGriff on this roster.
No, I see what you're saying, but
I just know it's a question. I don't know.
I know what you're bringing up. Their payroll is not like it's $60 million. Like they're not the Rays. Their payroll is $130 million.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean that's pretty good. And if anyone down there was paying attention to the fan interest and the reception, that place was electric. I could feel it on TV. I can only imagine what it was like down there.
It was not the Braves' playoff atmosphere of old.
No.
Well, and to be fair, like it's new again. And in the early '90s, I mean, I've talked about this on the show before, but it blows my mind to tell people that don't remember it or weren't from here. I'm like, man, in 1992, in October, there was not anybody I knew who wasn't talking about the Braves, whether they were baseball fans or not. It was. I can't think of a sporting event to compare it to.
No, it was its own thing, and the last couple of days down there, to me, like I said, that's what it felt like. My main concern for them before we wrap this one up, they overachieved this year. I mean, I think we all acknowledge that to go an 18-win improvement, to win 90 ball games, to get where they are with this young group, it was an overachievement by any measure. If they go out and they make these moves and shore these things up, shore these weak spots up, I think that they can certainly be right back in here. But if they don't, or they just kind of halfway try to do it, it's hard to imagine that there's not going to be a little bit of slippage in their game. Can you expect them to win another 90 or 91 games without addressing maybe another starting pitcher or addressing that bullpen? Certainly.
Yeah. Have they finalized a decision about Brian Snicker? Or did they know what they're doing yet? I mean, I know at one point he was just signed to a 1-year extension.
It's hard to believe that he won't be back.
I mean,
that's just my opinion.
I would like to think so.
Now,
if there's anybody in baseball that deserves to be the manager of the Atlanta Braves, it's Brian
I don't
Snicker.
know that all Braves fans feel that way.
Well,
but I mean, that's going to be part
that's
of
every
course,
fan base
no
in
matter
every
what.
team. Yeah.
All right, that's it for episode 69. Again, congratulations to the Atlanta Braves. A fantastic season. We look forward to seeing what they do in the future. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show on whichever platform you like to use. Tell your friends about it. Like we said, make them listen no matter what. BG, you got anything else to add before we close it down?
Maybe we should just call it a week at this point and not do the football show. I just, after last night, I mean,
if I was a Redskins fan, I'd want to stop it too.
I feel like
it was terrible.
Well, you guys certainly were impressive.
We were amazing.
We were. You looked great.